Mike, I want to know your most underrated exercises for building muscle. First, let's start with the chest. What's your most underrated upper chest builder?
The cambered bar incline press. It's underrated because nobody knows it exists.
Nobody does it.
Nobody has it. Nobody has a camber bar. The list goes on. It's amazing. It's a barbell movement. It's compound. Allows for stability, force production, progression, maximum range of motion, maximum tension at the stretch. It's just wonderful.
Lower chest.
I would say dips because the mere existence of the decline press is a joke if you realize dips exist. I'm kidding because variation's a cool thing. The decline is just such a difficult exercise to like unrack, rack. The range of motion ends up being crappy. Like a decline cambered bar press could be cool, but then but I suspect you'll just bunch into yourself and it won't be as cool as we think. Dips still, like if you want a lower chest, dips are just the place to go.
What do you say to people that say dips are unsafe for your shoulders?
Am I being polite or comedically impolite?
Just say your honest take. So comedically impolite.
Comedically impolite. I would say you made that up. And then when they say they didn't make it up, I would ask for compelling, and I don't, you know me, man, I'm not just an empiricist. I'm also a rationalist. So even just walk me through your honest to God reasoning. And at that point, there is none. And so the debate goes down the shitter. My PT said is not a compelling argument.
Are you sure? That field of authority sounds pretty compelling.
Yes, that's true. You know, it is funny that authority is relative. And, you and I are both PhDs in sports science. So when people say, well, my physical therapist said, like, oh, are you hurt? They're like, no. Like, well, then why the fuck are you talking to your PT about how to exercise? When you get hurt, we'll send you to a PT. For effective exercises and safe effective exercises, like we got it covered. They're totally good.
It's especially wild when you look at, for instance, the literature on the effects of warming up on injury prevention. You realize there's far less than people realize.
Far less.
Like you think, oh, warming up definitely prevents injury 100%. It's like guaranteed.
Far less.
So yeah.
The thing is, warming up, at least on multiple integrated inferential grounds, prevents injury. But dips are bad for your shoulders. There's no inference to draw other than like colloquialisms like, well, it's too extreme. Like, can you draw me a line between too extreme and not extreme? How do you reason about that sort of thing? The whole thing goes down the drain.
Chest covered. Let's move on to arms. Let's start with biceps. What's your most underrated exercise?
Lying bicep curls, lying dumbbell bicep curls. I sort of like, we reinvented them recently at RP. And I've never actually seen anyone else do them ever, but I'm sure in some hardcore 70s gyms they were done. Incredible force curve, amazingly versatile. And even if you have a very low incline and you slide up it, even if you're a tall king, you can still get full stretch and everything. It's just an amazing exercise and probably the best exercise for biceps I've ever done. I'm thankful that now in my 40s, I still get to make novel gains in my arms because I just rediscovered that exercise. And I'm at the same time regretful that I hadn't discovered this a long time ago and I could have just had bigger arms this whole time. So,
2 follow-up questions on that exercise because I've actually tried them myself. One is, do you try and keep your upper arms parallel to the ground, or do you let them kind of like come down and get into a bit more shoulder extension?
Per your most recent communication of the literature on lengthened tension versus stretch, and them being roughly interchangeable somehow, I would say first, it doesn't much matter.
True.
I've done them both ways. Of course, Jared figured out the probably best way to do it, which is you don't just curl down and you don't just start with elevated shoulders and curl down. You reach forward. When you hit that point,
you go down.
Then you go down and then you come up and you reach up again. Goated.
Beautiful. Second question, is there I guess getting into deeper extension of the shoulder is one benefit. Couldn't you just do them on the ground? If you have no bench, for example?
You could. I just always think it's awkward because I'm a big like ASMR stretch guy. And so for me, it's like the stretch definitely conveys extra benefits as well. And so for me, it's kind of like, yeah, the ground is dope and all, but I would really like to be able to just get that baller stretch. You just won't get that to the ground. So it's like actually just lying on the ground and coming up to 90 degrees and coming back down. I think it's actually a great bicep exercise. But I think it's better if you have a stretch. I think the ultimate bicep exercise for dumbbell would be if you have and I might actually purchase an ab bench mostly just for this, is because ab benches are declined.
Yep.
A decline dumbbell curl, instantly, because then you get everything aligns perfectly. At the bottom, you're essentially parallel and at a max stretch, and the forces are optimized. It's very difficult to improve on that.
Yep. Beautiful. What about the triceps? What's your most underrated tricep builder?
The JM press.
Really?
Yeah.
Hot take. What about the long head?
So you train the long head every time you train the back.
Yeah. Not sure if it's a limiting factor or close to it, but maybe.
For sure. But the volume of back training can make up for that substantially. And so I'm not into trying to search for the best tricep exercise, because I think a complete program should involve overhead, long head focused work and work on the other two heads. And so the JM press, a lot of times people will do skull crushers and they'll turn that into a long head exercise too by going behind the head or to the forehead. And the really cool thing about JM presses or skull crushers, depending on how you call them, is if you go and try to touch your neck, not only is it a huge stretch, but your forearm is going to be about parallel, which optimizes that force curve.
Yep.
It's very, very tough to beat. So I would say modify jam, because jam press really is to upper chest. Somewhere between a jam press and a skull crusher, where you ideally touch gently to your throat, pause for a second, and come up. Like, I've done plenty of seminars where I've introduced people to that exercise, and almost everyone after doing a set or two, they're like, dude, what the fuck is going on with my triceps? Like, it's not rocket science. Maximum tension at the stretch.
I was at one of those seminars in 2019. So was Dr. Pack, actually. We didn't meet then, but we were both at that seminar. London, Revive Stronger.
You guys didn't meet each other then?
Nope. We didn't know each other like we were there. But then a year later, started the PhD and we met. Wild. Anyways, I agree. I think the JM press is like a trade-off where on the one hand, the long head takes a bit of a hit. On the other hand, for the lateral and medial head, very nice resistance profile.
Yeah. And it's one of the reasons I said it was underrated is because everyone's everywhere. Long head to triceps is like lats to back.
Yeah.
People use them interchangeably and they're obsessed with them.
But anything trains the lateral and medial head, like anytime you extend your elbow, think about it.
Yeah. But also people seem to like, the only one they remember has a name as the long head. And it's kind of like this clever bullshit people get into where anything you share for triceps, they're like, what about the long head? And you're like, bro, yeah, it exists. It's fine. Go overhead. You'll be good. There's other things going on.
Yep. All right. The back next. Specifically, let's start with the lats. Because, hey, once again, lats are all that matter.
All that matter. I would say pull-ups are currently underrated. People have gotten into machines. They've gotten into one-arm isolation stuff, which is all really good and has its place. But really well executed, eccentrically controlled pull-ups progressed over months and years. Still, to me, is just one of these golden exercises that works super well. And I think a lot of people have gotten away from that, and thus I would say it's underrated.
Don't you think pullovers, like dumbbell pullovers, are pretty underrated as well?
Definitely. I could have chosen 3 or 4 other exercises for any of these.
Yeah. Fair enough. What about overall back development?
Cable, barbell, or dumbbell flexion row. Hits the lats okay, but it hits the spinal erectors like crazy, the entire mid-back, the traps at the top. It's really top to bottom, side to side. If you said, hey, overall, you need a huge back, you only have one exercise to do. Yeah, cable flexion rows have to be in the conversation for that sort of thing.
One thing I'm always curious about flexion rows with is how close to failure do you think the individual muscles are being pushed?
That really depends on your individual muscle strengths and ratios and stuff. It really depends on how you execute the technique. If you do a huge degree of flexion and rounding, it's mostly an erector exercise. If you do a small amount, it's fairly well-balanced exercise. It's not going to get your lats a ton, but it get your lats as much as any other bent row will, and gets everything else moving more dynamically too. So I'd say your question of the relative impact to various muscles is a perfect illustration of the fact that in seriousness, not just for some interesting conversations in earnest, asking the literal question of what the best exercise for the back is a nonsense proposition.
Yes.
It's like asking what the best carb source is for bodybuilding. Like, just
Potatoes.
stop. Yeah. Well,
There you go. Enjoy.
yep, if you're eating rice, you're an idiot. Milo 2019.
Hey, there you go. All right, let's move on to legs, keeping shoulders for last. Starting with the quads.
I still have to say belt squats. I mean, sissy squats, almost no one does.
It's true.
Super underrated. But belt squats is one of these things that if you do them right, the stimulus to fatigue ratio is just wacky high. It's a compound movement. You get to have your heels on the ground, produce really high forces. You can do really high reps without gassing out because the systemic effort isn't as high because you're not moving your torso. It's very little or no axial fatigue because your torso is not involved. Easy clip in, clip out. Warming up for them is a matter of doing a body weight 12, one intermediate weight 5, going to your actual working weight for a set of like 20 and just clipping it and going. They're super easy to do for my reps and stuff because you can just lock out at the top. There's a problem in the fact that like if you get pinned at the bottom, it's bad news. But most belt squats have handles you hold on to, which you can get yourself out of. You just have to like, don't draw the gun too soon kind of thing. And for those reasons, it's just, you just do one set of, 25 total reps, my rep style with 3 broken up sets. And you're gonna like have like both quads will cramp at the same time. You're like, oh, I see. So big deal. And then again, like, it's one of these exercises that the legs is an interesting thing for underrated, overrated, because if done properly, so many exercises are so amazing. It's just a lot of people don't do them because they look at them and they're like, fuck that. I'm not doing that shit. I'm going to put 315 on the squat bar. I'm going to squat it halfway down for a couple sets of 5. I'm going to talk to that one girl I like to talk to, and then I'm going to leave. So it's going to be painful, but it's going to be worth it if you need big quads.
Meanwhile, here we are in some random basement talking about what exercise is best. Meanwhile, that guy, hitting it off.
Putting it in. Yeah, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah.
You're on your like 5th Red Bull or something. This is terrible.
Listen, non-Europeans, hydration.
It's part of the blood at this point.
True. Do you ever notice less hip extensor involvement on the belt squat? Like your glutes and adductors don't get quite as fatigued from belt squatting compared to regular squatting?
Glutes definitely,
Yep.
because hip extension is not required at all.
Which is a good thing for quads.
Adductors, I haven't noticed a ton, but you have such a variation of stance width. The other cool thing is if you really have adductors like a problem with a limiting factor for you, you don't want them to be, you can take a nice close feet forward stance and not really have to worry about balancing a bar on your back. And so for that alone, it's really great. And you can do belt squats in sissy squat style, no problem. So sissy squat belt squats is like totally a great option. And then holy goat, I mean, my God, if you're a masochist and you don't have a lot of time, superset sissy squat belt squats to regular belt squats, both my rep style. One superset, you're done. There you go, your quads. Every part of your quad, too.
True, breadth femoris included. Hamstrings, hit me.
No, Nordic curls.
Damn, I've actually been doing those.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't do them. But I think when I have done them, and they're really better done when you have some sort of assistance device in front of you, like crawl down the pole, crawl up the pole sort of thing, like a bar.
Yep.
They're just phenomenal. They check a ton of boxes. They're super easy to warm up for. They're super easy on your back. Minimal equipment, minimal space requirements. They're not very systemically fatiguing. Like you do a stiff leg deadlift set. It's great for total body and everything. But then you're like huffing and puffing for a few minutes. You can get all of your hamstring work in a matter of 3 minutes with like just one long Maya rep set of Nordic curls, and then you're golden. I'd say improperly training the hamstrings when you don't pre-lengthen and you don't do a full range of motion, good tension at the stretch. You can think like there's no way to train hamstrings to get them sore. I don't even know if this is working. And as one of those curious muscle groups where proper hamstring training, you're like, why isn't everything this easy to train? And can you imagine doing 3 sets of something for like chest, arms, lats, and just being sore for 5 days? Like, my God, lifting would be so amazing if that was the case.
Yep. Couple things about Nordic curls. One, if you don't like using a stick to kind of support yourself, Bending your hips and obviously reducing the movement arm can actually be okay as well, because you're effectively lengthening the biarticular hamstrings a bit more and making it easier. You still get that nasty resistance profile with more tension in the stretch, less than shortened, but it makes it a bit easier. And the other thing is, the Nordic curl is one of the only exercises we have any evidence for preventing injury in sports.
Solid.
So it's like,
It's a good model for that.
something, you know?
Basically, bend at the hips, start at a fully extended push-up position. Another thing to do is if you have like blocks for push-ups, start at the block extended push-up position, come all the way down, but try to minimally use your upper body. I don't love that because the trade-off of what am I using? When you get close to failure, you start kind of using everything. Tracking's out the window, but it can be helpful. Yeah. There's a couple of companies make a Nordic curl assistance machine, but I don't love it because it's leverage fucking backwards. So it destroys the entire value of the Nordic curl.
It's an odd one because on the one hand, it is built how it's supposed to be, and that it's helping the most in the horse position.
Supposed to be.
You know? Whereas with
If your job is to do reps.
Yes. But for hypertrophy, not great.
Yeah.
All right. What about the glutes?
Front foot elevated Smith machine lunge. I would say the current king of all glute exercises. This is difficult to get an exercise that has that combination of stability and of the kind of focusing in on the glutes that after one set, you're like, dude, something's wrong with my fucking glutes. Amazing exercise, and front foot elevation just destroys. I like to put my toenails down on the bottom foot so that I can't even push off. Actually, at our gym, we have a slide board. So if you do them with a slide board, you can't push off on that one foot. And I mean, it's just killer. We train folks all the time on the YouTube channel on bikini competitors and stuff. And every time we get them on it, they're like, what the hell is going on with me? You know, if they do like a million kickbacks and they're like, yeah, it's fine for the glutes. So that's a thing. And the reason it's underrated is almost no one does them. And one of the reasons almost no one does them is that no one knows them. The other reason is like they try them, like, fuck that. I'm not trying to get killed on this thing.
Lengthen partials on those. I've done them. Brutal.
The worst.
Beautiful.
The best.
Final muscle groups, shoulders. Let's start with the side delts.
I mean, like sideways lying on bench laterals have to be massively underrated.
No one does them.
No one does them. They're very awkward. Yeah. But if you get them working for you, biomechanically, they're unstoppable. So I would say that's probably my choice. Front delts, I would say low incline, 2-arm, thumbs up dumbbell raises with a slow eccentric. Similar to the lying curls on biceps, is like just tough to beat. Very few people do them. They're painful. They're not, you wouldn't infer to do them. And a lot of people just do like the swinging one arm up and down.
The Arnold.
Like the number of good bodybuilders I've seen doing the one at a time swinging dumbbell bullshit, like every rep that I see on video being done, I think it eats away at a part of my soul I'll never get back.
I mean, hey, it works. I mean, or something.
Or something.
Yeah.
Like, would you say it to that guy's face? Like, yes, and I have. It's just funny because, like, you know, Jared's a pro, and Jared's also, like, can be very curt with all the best intentions, but he doesn't do the filter thing a lot. And so he's, like, told legit top pros to their faces, like, that's dumb. And they're like, okay. Like, what are you going to tell Jared?
True.
Rear delts or no?
Yeah, rear delts as well.
Fuck them. Oh.
For the road. No, let's do it.
Underrated rear delt exercises. Can I do a curveball on this?
Hell yeah.
Properly executed deep stretch, neutral grip back work is going to get your rear delts going like crazy. And most people just like spend a lot of time doing isolation rear delt work. And then when they do their back, they're doing this. And it's like, dude, you could have knocked out 2 birds with 1 stone.
Most lat training and most upper back training hits the rear delts pretty well as well. 100%. If there's one exercise you do or have done in the past that you think is underrated overall, what is it?
Gee whiz. Deficit deadlifts. It's that same energy that you get with front foot elevated Smith machine lunge, where like people learn about it and they're like, fuck that, I'm not doing that. But it will put slabs of meat on your back that are just unreal. And not only for jackness, but if like you're an athlete and like grappling or some kind of combat sport, the ability to unfurl your body against resistance makes you just difficult in a variety of ways. Like in wrestling and jiu-jitsu and MMA, there's something called like the snap down or head control. You pull on someone's neck and their shoulder. And if you can snap them down, you can go behind them and take their back. if you try to snap somebody down who's really good at doing a deficit deadlifts, you just do this thing and nothing happens. And you're like, oh, fuck, this is bad news. And if they shoot at your legs and you sprawl out, that they can unfurl, all they do is grab behind your thigh and they just do this. And now they're standing up with you and you're like, what am I supposed to do about this? So
when I was a young buck, I followed your recommendation and did these. They're brutal. But they eventually kind of just turn into squats in my experience.
Yes.
If you use a big enough deficit.
Yes. Like your legs have to kick in.
Yep.
What I would say is for most people, try to bend very little at the knees, very little at the hips, and let the back do the work.
Sure.
The weight's not going to be impressive. It's like a Jefferson curl, same situation. But eventually the weight gets higher and higher. I would say also doing these in the 8 to 12 rep range. 5 to 10 is okay. But especially if you're sort of new to it, spinal flexion extension, I still think, because of the design of the spine, like a little lighter and a little high rep is better. You just build such an insane work capacity and such massive back musculature that it's just huge benefit.
Beautiful. Underrated exercises covered. Until next time.
Until next time, thank you so much.